they're saying that there is starvation going on in Gaza, right? And this is an added accusation to support the ongoing campaign to convince people that there is genocide in Gaza, that the Israelis are supposedly committing genocide in Gaza. Now, obviously, this kind of campaign is directed at to manipulate the moral emotions of Westerners, right? Because, of course, if you're a Judeo-Christian Westerner and there's a group of people causing another group of people to starve, then naturally your emotional, moral reaction is to defend the people who are being oppressed with starvation, right? What else are you going to do as a good, moral Judeo-Christian Westerner, right? You're supposed to defend the weak, fight for the oppressed, oppose injustice, and all that good stuff, right? This is what we do, right? So this is the framing is that the Israelis are oppressing the Arab Palestinians, right? This is what they want you to believe. So how do they do it? So the New York Times publishes a photograph that I'm going to show you. It's amazing what they did. So let me see, where is this? I lost it. Oh, here it is, I think. Yeah. So the New York Times publishes a photograph, and here it is, that appears to show a malnourished child being held by his mother. Okay? So you look at this photograph and you say to yourself, oh my God, that child is very, very thin. He is abnormally thin. And the New York Times is a respected publication, and it's telling you that there is starvation in Gaza. Obviously, if they're using this picture, it must be because the child is starving, right? The mother looks perfectly well fed, right? But the child somehow is starving, right? So forget about the contradiction between a well-fed mother and her own child who is not getting enough food. I mean, that would mean that the mother was taking food away from the child, right?
Yeah.
How can you have a well-fed mother and a starving child? How does that make any sense, right? But let's move that to one side. The child looks thin, right? Too thin. So the mind thinks there must be starvation in Gaza. Otherwise, how could the child look like this, right? And it's the New York Times. It's a very high, the most high prestige newspaper in the world, right? So the mind thinks I'm looking at starvation, except that almost immediately after that picture was published, an independent journalist by name David Collier, and this is, everybody, this is why we need independent journalism, right? Because we can't trust the big brands. The big brands lying to us, right? So what did this independent journalist do? This guy managed to get the medical records of that little boy. And the medical records indicate that this boy had serious pre-existing health conditions, including cerebral palsy, hypoxemia, and possible genetic disorder, which affected his muscle development. Okay? So he's not a malnourished child. He is a child with deformities due to medical conditions that affect negatively his muscle development. All right? That's what we're looking at. So now you have to ask yourself, so then what happened? So then the New York Times admitted that this was a sick and deformed child. They admitted, they confessed in public that they had used the photo of a malformed child to try to convince us that there was starvation in Gaza. They confessed to this. But in the confession, so you know, they published these retractions, and it's never the front page story, right? The front page story with the front page photograph, that's the lie, right? That's going to stay there for everybody to remember. And the correction happens in a little box that nobody sees, right? But what they said in that box was that that the child, yes, has these medical conditions, but he is also malnourished. So they tried to say, well, yeah, true, that's a very sick child, but he's also malnourished. But see, here's the problem. Since they were doing something dishonest from the beginning, right? Why should you believe the New York Times that this child is malnourished. Why should you believe the same liars when they try to correct their lie, right? So, oh yeah,
Yeah.
he's sick, but he's also malnourished. Why should you believe that? Especially considering that the mother looks perfectly well fed. The mother looks well fed, and the other thing that David Collier, this independent journalist, documented was that there was no documentation of the twin brother of that child being malnourished. So neither the brother nor the mother are malnourished. This child looks a little bit thin, and that's supposed to convince us this unfortunately deformed child is supposed to convince us that there's starvation in Gaza. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
where would the New York the next question is, where would the New York Times source the claim that the child is malnourished anyway? Where would the information that the child is malnourished come from? And the answer is it would come from the Gaza Ministry of Health, because that child is in Gaza. So there's nobody else to provide medical information about this child that is not the Gaza Ministry of Health. But guess what? The Gaza Ministry of Health is Hamas, because Hamas is the government in Gaza. So the claim that there is starvation in Gaza has been established by the New York Times with a photo of a child that is obviously not starving, a child that is sick and has a muscular condition, a condition that affects the growth of his muscles, right? The child, he's not starving, he has a medical condition, and the claim that the child is supposedly starving comes from the Gaza terrorists, who have an interest in convincing the world that the Israelis are bad people who are hurting the Arab Palestinians.